What's going on, everybody? JT here, coming at you with another episode of Pokemon Go, and today we're going to be talking about the Therian forms of Landorus, Tornadus, and Thundurus, and whether or not you should actually be focusing on these Pokemon when they come to raids. Now I'm thinking, let's start with the worst one, and then move our way up to the best one. So, with that being said, the worst one, and the one you really are not going to be caring about at all, is Therian Tornadus here. It's really bad. Let's compare the Therian and the Incarnate form together to see how good they are. So, as an Incarnate form, Tornadus has an attack of 266, a defense of 164, and a stamina of 188, with a maximum CP of 3,782, which isn't bad. I mean, a really good high attack, but sadly, the moveset is not great, but we'll dive into that in a second. As the Therian form, it has an attack of 238, a defense of 189, and a stamina of 188. So it keeps the same stamina, but it gains more defense and loses some attack, and its maximum CP is 3,635. So, yeah, unfortunately, in terms of doing raids and stuff like that, it gets a lot worse. Now, since Tornadus is a pure flying type Pokemon, we're going to focus on its pure flying type moveset of Air Slash and Hurricane, because it would get stabbed with those moves specifically, but unfortunately, Hurricane just doesn't give it enough firepower in order for it to be that useful. If it got a huge buff, maybe Tornadus would have a chance of being on the top of the flying charts, but sadly, it just doesn't work out. As its Incarnate form, it has a DPS of 14.7, and as a Therian form with the exact same moveset, it has a DPS of 13.26, which is not great. There's a lot of things that beat these. In fact, I made a small list of better flying types. Now, none of them are Mega and none of them are Shadow, but they're still really good. At number 1, it's Moltres with Wing Attack and Sky Attack with a DPS of 16.96. Then there's Honchkrow with Peck and Sky Attack with a DPS of 16.76, which is still pretty good. And then there's Rayquaza with Air Slash and Hurricane. It has Hurricane, just like Tornadus, and it has a DPS of 16.76. Way better than Tornadus. And then I also got Staraptor in here with Wing Attack and Brave Bird with a DPS of 15.72. So yeah, there's a lot of things in here that are better than Tornadus when it comes to raids specifically. So personally, I'd say just kind of stay away from this one. Try to get the shiny when it comes out, fill out the decks, but it's just not worth your time when it comes to raids. There's so many things that beat it when it comes to raiding. But you might ask to yourself, what about PvP? Maybe it'll be decent in PvP, and unfortunately, from what I've been seeing and reading, it's probably not going to be that great. Even with the increased defense, it doesn't seem to be enough, and it doesn't really have a good enough moveset to make it very viable. Though it does get Grass Knot, which is pretty cool, it still just doesn't feel like it'd be that great. It mostly would only be used in Ultra and Master League, and there's a lot of counters for it in there. Melmetal's a big one, with Thunder Shock and Rock Slide. I mean, yeah, it's pretty bad for it. There's also Articuno's in there. Articuno would definitely wreck it. There's even Machamp, and I know Machamp's a fighting type, which means he's weak to the flying type. But he has Rock Slide, and he could probably charge that up way faster than Tornadus can get around to getting its moves out. So in the end of the day, just try to get the shiny, fill out your decks, and move on. It's just not worth the time at the moment. Let's now move on to a better Therian form, and this one is number 2 on the list, but it's still amazing, and that's Therian Thundurus. This thing is really, really good. But of course, let's compare the Incarnate and the Therian forms. So, as the Incarnate, it has an attack of 266, a defense of 164, and a stamina of 188, with a maximum CP of 3,782. And also, I forgot to mention this with Tornadus, but this is all at level 50. So, not bad. Pretty good attack, decent defense, good stamina. It's pretty good, but as a Therian, it's a lot better. It has an attack of 295, a defense of 161, and a stamina of 188, with a maximum CP of 4,137. So yeah, it gets a huge buff in its attack, and a very, very minor defensive change at all, and the stamina is exactly the same, but it's really good. It's really, really good. But a big reason why this Therian form is so useful is because they gave it a different moveset that its Incarnate form couldn't have. And that moveset is now Volt Switch and Thunderbolt, which is really good because it now has a DPS of 17.9, and it now trumps the old DPS king for electric types, Zekrom. Zekrom, with Charge Beam and Wild Charge, had a DPS of 17.4. So now, Thundurus is the king of electric types. Of course, we are still throwing out Shadows and Megas, but purely off of that, he's now number 1. So would I say this is worth it? Absolutely. Go out and raid this thing, try to get as many good ones as you can, try to power them up to level 50, but I do not believe this is future-proof. You see, it did take the crown from Zekrom, but Zekrom does not have one of its 2 signature moves, which are Fusion Bolt and Bolt Strike, which I believe, if Zekrom gets either one of those, will probably retake the crown from the non-Mega, non-Shadow category. I mean, those moves were powerful in the main series games, and I can totally see when he gets it, it will definitely make him better than the Therian form of Thundurus. But I would also say that it's taken Niantic a very long time to implement these moves. I mean, Lugia only recently got Aeroblast, and there's a lot of other legendaries that came before Zekrom that still don't have their signature moves yet, including Ho-Oh. Ho-Oh doesn't have Sacred Fire, so it'll be some time before this happens. So at this moment, yes, it's still worth it, but in the future, it might not be as useful as other things that are to come. So definitely raid them now, but don't think that this is going to be what you're using forever. And now let's talk about the best of the Therians, and obviously the last one, Landorus. This thing is insanely good. Just like before, let's compare the Incarnate and Therian forms. As an Incarnate, it has an attack of 261, a defense of 182, a stamina of 205, and a max CP of 4057. Which is alright, it's not amazing, but it's okay. As its Therian form, it has an attack of 289, a defense of 179, and a stamina of 205 with a max CP of 4434. So clearly, it gets more attack just like Thundurus, just a minor defensive lowering, though it is a little bit more than Thundurus, and the stamina stays exactly the same. Now with its pure ground-type moveset of Mud Shot and Earth Power, it is the #1 ground-type DPSer in the game. It even beats Shadows. There is no current Shadow ground-type in the game that actually can compare to it. With all of those moves, it has a DPS of 17.32, which is really, really good. There is a chance in the future there might be some Shadows that beat it, but currently, there's nothing, and it's almost pretty much future-proof in this game. There will be 2 specific Pokemon, though, that do beat Landorus eventually in the future, but they're both Megas, which means you can only have one of them in your team at a time, and those are Mega Garchomp with Mudshot and Earthquake, which has a DPS of 19.03, which is insane, and then after that, there's Primal Groudon, which with the same moveset has a DPS of 18.5. which are both really good, though the Primal Groudon could take the #1 spot because it does have a signature move of Precipice Blades, which isn't in the game yet, might take some time for it to get, just like we mentioned with Zekrom. But yeah, minus that, I mean, there doesn't seem to be anything else. Maybe Shadow Excadrill, maybe, but even then, these Landoruses are going to be very, very, very useful in the future. When it comes to PvP, I would say that Landorus would actually be an interesting play. It does have a high CP to it. It would definitely be really good for Master League in terms of the fact that it is pretty useful against Dialga, which is a very, very common one. You use those ground type moves on it, and that's going to be very good. But also, not a lot of people know how to deal with it. And you don't see too many Articunos in the Master League, which would be probably its #1 counter, because Ice is 4 times effective against them. But yeah, for the most part, it's mostly a raid Pokemon, but you could end up using it in PvP and maybe get a couple wins because of it, because not a lot of people know how to deal with it. And that's pretty much everything I got to say about the Therians here. I mean, they're pretty decent Pokemon, minus one of them. One of them's pretty bad, but besides that, yeah, I'd say definitely invest into the Landoruses and the Thunduruses, because for now, they're very good. There could always be something around the corner that beats them, but for now, they're probably gonna reign on top for quite some time. I really hope that you enjoyed this video because I really enjoyed making it. I love making informative videos like this, so if you want to see me do more of these things, let me know in the comments down below, and then if, you know, a lot of you say it, then I'll just keep making them because I'd like to help you guys out. But while you're doing that, don't forget to smash the like button for me, show me some love, subscribe to the channel, hit that little bell icon so you know when I upload, and also, I have a Patreon if you guys would like to support the channel. You can click the link in the description box below and it really helps out. But with that being said, this is the end of the video. I'll see you in the next one.